Hi, I'm Roel. I'm the managing partner of Velten & Company, and these are my colleagues, Sheila and Tim. I think we have kind of a lot of information for you for the next 40 minutes. It's about activity-based working. And that's our only product. It's our thinking, it's our philosophy. We are the founders of activity-based working 25 years ago, and now we're based in London, in Sweden, in Norway, in New York, in Sydney, and in Eindhoven. So that's about it. And this is who we are. We are the leading international consultants of activity-based working. It's a new way of working. It's a holistic approach about the physical workspace. It's about behavior, and it's about IT. So it's about the technology. We have over 25 years of experience. And we develop concepts and do the implementation for larger organizations and multinationals. We have about 35 employees all over the globe. So that's pretty little. So we are a lot in buses, in planes, and in cars.
Sometimes full agendas for us.
And we always do it in co-creation with our clients. So they do the work, and we'll do the consultancy, the advice. And what is activity-based working? It's about this. Activity-based working is a philosophy. It's a way of thinking. It's our belief. And it's about the freedom the leader gives, or the leaders. The freedom about where, when, and with whom you work. So it's not about how you work, but it's about where, when, and with whom you work. And we have a little film clip about activity-based working. We'll show it in the next 2 minutes.
Do you remember when we were all expected to work in one place? In huge offices, which took long and frustrating commutes to reach? Sitting down all day, emailing colleagues on the other side of the world? Or a few desks away? Under the watchful eye of your manager? Actually, many organizations still work like that, even though the world has changed. Globalization and digitization mean that for many of us it's irrelevant where or even when we work, which has enabled millions to create a better, healthier work-life balance. That's a fundamental change. Ever since the Industrial Revolution, we've grown used to the idea that work and private life are two completely different worlds. That work meant a factory or office away from home. The information revolution, in a way, is reversing that. It's also having a massive impact on the nature of our work. As software takes over more and more routine jobs, it's our ideas and creativity that are becoming more and more important. In response to these changes, organizations are becoming more flexible and less hierarchical. But most offices still look as if success depends on the number of staff and their physical presence, rather than on their quality, creativity, and commitment. What's needed is a workplace tailored to the actual needs of people and the organization they work for. Activity-based working. To understand this concept, let's first agree on what it isn't. For example, it's not the same as trendy new office space. It's not the same as getting as many people as possible to work from home. Activity-based working is about you and your colleagues. It's about organizing your work in a more productive and enjoyable way. Creating the best circumstances for each activity, whether it's developing ideas, delivering content, or sharing knowledge. And yes, of course, that has implications for our physical workplace. It means that you need a range of dedicated facilities for specific activities. You also need an effective virtual working environment, instant access to all the information you need, wherever you are, tools to collaborate with colleagues, wherever they are. But perhaps most crucially, you need an organizational culture built on trust, empowerment, a shared sense of responsibility. And everybody, including managers, needs to be fully committed to this new way of working. It sounds challenging, and it is. But the benefits are substantial. A healthier and more sustainable workplace. More effective, engaged and motivated people. Better collaboration, which means better ideas and more efficient decision making, which in turn will lead to faster problem solving and more satisfied customers. And yes, let's not forget, activity-based working can boost productivity and save costs. But only when it's approached in the right way. After all, there's no universal blueprint for activity-based working. It all starts with an organization's vision, values and strategy. And finding the best mix of physical settings, digital tools and attitudes to support it. So tell me, how are you going to make this work for you?
So it's about freedom, it's about responsibility, and it's about individual choices. And our claim for today is, when you work activity-based, you lose 50% less of labor. That's our claim. And now in the next 20 minutes we want to discuss with you all, how. Tim.
My name is Tim. I'm a change expert and the product expert of Velton & Company, but especially change products. And we've been developing quite a lot of these the last couple of years. I remember entering the company, we were delivering consultancy services, talking to the organizations and talking to the people, and developing concepts with them. And in the last couple of years, we've also been developing specific concrete products that help organizations develop into more effective choices. Because effective choices, that's what it's all about in activity-based working. Can an individual make his or her own choices on a daily basis? And is the organization capable of doing so? And I'm going to tell you something about 4 specific products we've been making and we've been using quite a lot the last couple of years. And well, let's see if we can get some interaction around these. Well, the first one we call the worksite indicator. It's an instrument for measuring. I'm going to tell a lot more about it later on. The second one is team maturity, which might be a familiar word or theory for a lot of people in this room. I'm going to tell something about remote management, which seems to be quite obvious, but I've never met an organization in 10 years of Velton & Company who did a very good job of remote management. So there's a lot of work to be done in this work field. I'm going to tell something about structured quality. First question, who considers him or herself to be an introvert? An introvert. That's a difficult question. In the group,
an introvert.
Who's an extrovert? Because it's easier to speak out. I saw someone over there, an introvert.
Yeah, it's actually quite funny because we did an MBTI test last week and I was somewhere in the middle, so a little bit more introverted than extrovert, but not on the other side.
Yeah, not in the extreme.
No.
Did you recognize it?
Yeah, definitely.
And what's the part you did recognize?
Well, since I was in the middle, I do enjoy a lot of people around me, but when I need time for myself to load my battery, then I want to be alone.
Exactly. Same counts for me. That's why I chose the introvert. Because
And for me.
to connect to somebody who is kind of the same profile than somebody who's in the opposite. And this is not about being good or bad, but this is about your driver or what drives your behavior, basically. And you can't change it. So if it is a preference for being an introvert, just live with it because it's going to be there for the rest of your life. And of course you can learn skills to do something with networking, etc., but that's a skill, but the primary driver will always be introversion. And that's the same for me. So the definition is, well, if there is no colleagues around me, I feel pretty good. So I need colleagues for not being lonely. But if I need to charge my battery, my energy battery, I need to be low. So this group, I can live with it for a couple of hours, but a workshop of 9 hours, well then, you can, well I need some time alone. So that's an important one, because being an introvert, and maybe the people who say, well, I'm kind of an introvert, well, it drives your behavior related to effective choices, of course. So if I need to make an effective choice for my energy balance, that's a different choice from somebody being extrovert. It's a very simple theory, of course, but it's really important for making choices and how you develop something like activity-based work in your organization. So in financial business, you see a lot of introverts, usually in the demography of the organization. And for instance, in consultancy organizations, we see a lot of extroverts. But they need a different way of working probably, and they need another foundation also for making individual effective choices on a daily basis. The better a person knows this from him or herself, the better he or she can make the choices. So that's why we measure it. And we've collected a lot of scientific information together with other organizations, so this was too big for us to develop ourselves, so we connected to scientific institutes to develop this online survey, which measures, for instance, something to begin with, which measures your personality, your main drivers, and all connected to time and place independent working and making effective choices on your own, which is pretty difficult. And if you enter a new way of working, like activity-based working, we know that these main drivers are going to be influenced. And you need something, well, like extraversion, at least a little bit, to feel healthy in a more open environment. So that's why we measure it. Not going to go through all of these. I found the most interesting thing about this, the skill part, which is in there. So you can ask somebody to, how good do you think you perform in Excel? And I'd say, well, I can make a lot of calculations with it, so I think I'm pretty good in it. But if Bill Gates tells me something about Excel, and I know 1% probably. So you don't know, you can't do what you can't do, what you can't. So if we ask somebody, how good do you think you are in planning, which is a skill, probably somebody says, well, I perform pretty well, so I think it's a 5. But because we measure scientifically personality, we can predict the talent of a person on a skill. And that's very important to know for organizations if you want to make effective choices. So probably for this person, it takes a lot of effort, it costs a lot of effort to plan, more than it really helps for this person. So that's in there, and we have also kind of a readiness check for a team. So this is a team, this is 5 persons in a team, a small one. And you can see how likely this team is going to perform directly in making your own effective choices on a daily basis. So this is going to be pretty hard, and probably you need to do something extra. What I see from my change management experience. This is the work style indicator. So we know we need to raise awareness on, well, your own personality, your own skills, your own talent in order to make effective choices on a daily basis. And it requires something from managers to know there is, of course, a big difference in your team or within the organization. So person A needs a different treatment than person B. Or person A is likely to make different choices from person B. That's really important to know. Any more recognition or questions or remarks on we don't recognize it at all.
Maybe just for me to get the bigger picture, is this usually measured for team effectiveness and to see how organizations can perform better, or is it also really on an individual level that you consult companies?
Thanks for the question. It's both. So if you fill in a survey, you get an individual report. And the report describes this for you on an individual level. But there's also a team report. So we can define what the team is. So we collect a group of people in the team, and then somebody or the whole team receives a report in which there is a collective score outcome. It's more outcome than a score, of course, because it's not about good or bad. So extroversion, high extrovert this person compared to the reference group, but it means that there is probably low introversion, but a lower score on openness means that there's a high score on something on the other side. So there's never a judgment in here. So it's both. It's for the individual, for the team, and for the organization. So you can also see how your organization's scores relate to other organizations.
Is this something similar to the color test? Like you have the red, the yellow, the green?
Yeah,
Management drives.
this is MBTI focused, but it's no, it's MBTI based, but it's focused on making your own choices and virtual, so time and place independent working. Yeah.
Yeah. And therefore we've got 6 skills, besides business initiative, planning, goal implementation, collaboration, sociability, that we know that are really crucial for performing in these types of environments and making your own effective choices. So this person should probably, develop in sociability, because there's a lot to win. Because it says, well, I'm not good in it, networking, I'm not good in this, but there's a lot of talent for this position. There's a lot of possibilities to develop pretty quickly. Just a quick win, it's good to know. And because it's science, we say it's a 95% chance that this is a good prediction. It's large, because it's MBTI, and because it's management drives, and because it's the 5 big personality
Tests.
types. These are in here as well. So that's the first one. And the second one, well, of course, again, this is her statement. The better a person knows itself, or him or herself, the better choices he or she can make. And the smaller the chance of the opportunity that a person, stays at home for being ill, or is not, gets overstressed in an organization or an environment with too many, we call this in English, prickles, noise and distraction, etc., etc. Yeah. Of course, provided that this person is allowed to make this choice. That's of course a very fundamental foundation and condition for this. But as soon as the conditions are okay and this person knows itself and the team knows each other and recognizes the difference between introvert and extrovert, and it's just the way it is, the better the team can perform. Another one for you, this is based on the team. So you actually made the bridge already a little bit. So imagine for this team maturity that an organization is socially safe, but people are not good in providing feedback.
So that's a typical Dutch organization.
That's also for consultancy firms. It's tough to give proper feedback. Do you know this? Do you know an example of this? Socially very safe, but hard to give feedback. So what happens then?
And no space for learning.
Mm-hmm. What else?
What else?
Thanks.
People don't know what they're really good at and what they can improve, so they don't know their what's
Mm-hmm.
So probably on the blue score, works are indicated. You will score pretty high, but the talent might be lower than they know here. Not confronted with what they actually do. More?
No room for innovation, right? For growth and for how we're developing using the talent that you have.
Yeah. Because you don't connect to competences in the group.
Without knowing those talents, you don't know what you're missing as organization-wide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your demography is hard to influence. Thanks. Yeah. etc., of course. And you can measure this. So how is it built up, this team maturity, which is a management theory from the last couple of years. We have, well, added some basic levels. So for the people who are familiar with the model of team maturity, who knows the model?
No one?
A little bit. Yeah, it works the same as Maslow's pyramid. So you need a foundation of process focus. So people need to know, where is this organization for, what are we doing, who is our client, and how does the money come in? If that is not present in the organization, you can't talk about collaboration or innovation or do something with competences and sharing them. It's impossible. So you need to have this foundation, and you can measure this. How is the process focus developed? And the second one is interdependence. So Roel has a function, and I've got a function in the organization, and there is something on paper written. He's the managing director, and I'm a consultant, and we relate to one another officially. And there is something with salary, and there is something at the end of the month, there's something at the end of the year, and it needs to be okay. If that's not okay, you can't talk about collaboration. That's interdependence. You can make this as an organization. But in a lot of organizations, it's pretty hard. And in some organizations, like this example, it's pretty well developed. It's on a scale of 4, 3.25. That's pretty good. So most people said this is pretty well developed. So I feel secure in the interdependence. But then there is connection. So do we feel like if we have something, if there is something between the colleagues, do Sheila and I have something more like, well, I know a name. And it can be functional and it can be social. So that's pretty hard to make. You can influence this, but you can't make it. But you need this before there can be something like social safety, because such social safety considers team or something to be as a whole, to be something more like an adding of individuals. And social safety also has to do with, do I dare to speak out and say to Roel, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is a good idea. That's social safety. But providing feedback. So you see in these organizations, this is a real life example. This is last week. The security is pretty good, so people feel secure with one another. So I'm not afraid that he kills me if I if I say something wrong. And then he says, well, you say something wrong. But that's something else is providing feedback. That's, well, adding my personality, my skill, my competences to him. And then, well, there is something in return, of course. And that's really exciting for people to do. And this all starts with knowing, again. So for teams, really important to know how the maturity of the team is in order to improve it. If you want to make effective choices, there is more than the individual. The collective, the group as well. And we know that a lack of feedback leads to insecurity. There's no feedback. I know there is something, but it's not common. So there is something like people have an opinion or have an idea, can contribute to me, but they, well, refuse to do so. Don't dare to do so, whatever.
And it also leads to an ineffective way of working.
Yeah, because then I stay on my own, especially when I'm an introvert, which is the case. Yeah. So that's why we measure team maturity. This has been done well in every organization we've done, no matter if it is Lego in the United Kingdom or it is Aron in the south of the Netherlands. It doesn't really matter. Municipalities, all organizations measure team maturity now. And they learn a lot from it. Any question for this one?
Yeah, maybe about the feedback. Do you also measure how people give feedback? Because I think there's also a big difference in giving constructive feedback or just feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. The constructiveness of feedback is already incorporated in the level. So if it is not constructive, it has to do with social safety. Yeah. So that's why when we measure the difference. So if we would see that the social safety is low and feedback is high, that would be very strange. Yeah. So then we can analyze where it's coming. But of course, we need the discussion with the organization also about the meaning of what comes out of the survey. And this is an online survey, it only takes 10 minutes per person. And we get a team report, we get an organization report, so no individual reports. So the more anonymous this is, the better it is. And a lot of honest responses here. All right. Any more questions for this one? Feel free. Third one. The team is able to motivate and correct itself. 50%. Less loss of labor. That's what we believe in. Especially when you combine it with a work style. Or when you combine it with another foundation, which is remote management. And this is something very interesting. So, somebody in the room who has kind of suffered the difficulty of working remotely? Yeah, business. And what's the example in short?
I was working for, at that point I was working for Randstad as well, they even called it postbak-medewerker, which actually meant that you had no office, only a postbak. So,
which is your home?
No, so the place where you received your meal was
So
in the office, and home was the rest.
Wow.
Yeah, or clients. That's also.
Oh, wow. So then it's really hard to find a home base.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
Because it's a post box.
Exactly. Yeah. It's and it was actually, this was about 15 years ago, so it was before the time where we had flex places, flexible workplaces, and so when you got into the office, it was always, where is an empty office? Can I steal somebody else's spot and then sit in front of their children watching you?
Well, thanks for the example. I can add an example of myself, which is about my partner in life. She works with speech. So she's a speech therapist. So she needs to make a lot of reports about the clients she has, children. And then on a certain day she had some bad luck and she got a disorder in her balance, in her head. So she couldn't get up anymore. But she could still think, and she could still kind of walk and do stuff, but she couldn't get to work. Because if your balance is not right, and you're in a car, you're pretty likely to get off the road. It's not very wise to do. So after a week or so, her situation became a little bit better. She could focus again, she could look at the screen, but she was not allowed to drive a car for 6 weeks. Then she called her manager and she said, well, I can do some work, and the main reason for me is that I want to connect to the customer because I feel responsible. And the second thing is, if I come back after 8 or 10 weeks to the organization, I don't want the gap the gap between ill and healthy to be too large. So I don't want to go from not working to full days working, because I know you expect me to work full days when I come back, so I want to start up gradually at home. And I could do 50% of the work from home. And then the manager said, that's not possible because we have some protocols in the organization. There's too few budget for this. So the protocols that we don't facilitate home working spots. And she said, I don't need a home working spot, I only need a connection. So that's something you plug in your laptop and then you can go to the secure environment, switch on environment to the organization. But she was not allowed to. So there was a lot of influence on her responsibility, her motivation, the speed of her becoming healthy again, etc., etc. So I was really angry because it was really personal to our situation, of course. And she struggled to get back to work. There was always this bit of a danger that she fell back because the pressure of work for 8 days, feeling a lot of responsibility, having a lot of backlog, was pretty high, of course. So this is not about her. And I don't believe this is about the protocols. This is about the manager. The manager really struggling with giving freedom of choice to somebody who feels responsible for any reason. So that's not really a judgment to the manager, but it's something this organization could or maybe should develop from our perspective. So remote management is a competence that is, well, not automatically embedded in organizations. You can train this. And that's why we have a wonderful training for. And actually it's fundamental management under remote circumstances. How does this manager in the situation of my partner in life, how would he respond differently to this specific case?
So who here in this room is able to work remotely?
So
And who's not?
so not. Who's not then? Most of you are.
I wouldn't be able to do it 100% of the time. I wouldn't be able to work by myself alone in a space all the time. But have a remote manager and a remote team, that works.
Okay.
Yeah. Got one more. There's some indication of time pressure in the back of the room. So, if the leader is able to manage an output and empower staff, which is pretty difficult. So this is not a judgment towards the manager. This is reaching out to help the manager because remoteness is an extra challenge for this position. And management is meant for making sure the results are achieved and there is cohesion in the group. How do you do this remotely? So this manager needs some help.
This is an issue for all managers.
Yeah. The distance is very small or very big, it doesn't really matter. Achieving results and having social cohesion is very difficult with any degree of distance, time and place. And distance and time and place will be there if people make their effective choices because introverts start working from home. They need to be charged that way. And the last one, which is pretty obvious, is structured working. You've got an example. Maybe
Do I?
have an example?
No, on Monday mornings we have a weekly start for all team. And when there's a traffic jam, and it usually is, I call the colleagues and ask them to work with me at home, because I'm the only one in the traffic jam, and they aren't. So we win a lot of time, we gain a lot of time doing that. But that's my manner of working more structured.
Restructuring, reorganizing your day on a daily basis. That's what this is about. So this is not about setting goals and knowing how to achieve them. This is about where do I work, how do I work on a day, when do I work, and with whom do I work, how do we organize this. So that's the skill of organizing your calendar, but also knowing the difference between my way of structured working and Roel's way of structured working. So again, the awareness about the differences here and the acknowledgement of those differences is really crucial. So we say freedom of choice can't go without the skill of structuring the day itself. You can learn this.
And this looks pretty obvious, but in the organizations we advise 90% of the people work in a sort of a regime or in a pattern. So this way of working is not standard, not at all.
No.
Thinking about how you structure your day, about how you do it effectively, about which colleagues do you need that day, not at all.
What we hear from customers, having done this e-learning, because it's an e-learning, they say less email conversations, and I can save up to 1 to 2 hours a day if I structure pretty well, especially in a more open environment in which I can make those choices myself. And I know who I am, I know how the team performs, and I know what the weaknesses and strengths of the teams are. Our manager is capable of, giving me some freedom of choice and being in touch with me about this freedom of choice. And I've got the skill of structured working in this package. We're pretty sure it's 5% less loss of labor. So this is about sick leave, this is about leaving the organization, this is about ineffectiveness, etc.
More than 50% of the managers we see are in meetings all week. If we ask them, why do you do that? They have no answer at all.
Because it is. Because it's in the agenda. Yeah.
It's in the agenda and that's what it is.